What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. Last night, the Pittsburgh Steelers played their divisional rival, the Cleveland Browns, on Thursday Night Football in Week 11 of the 2019 NFL season. And the NFL is a league of parity. Every time you think you have the puzzle figured out, something comes along and throws a monkey wrench in the plans. Pittsburgh had been hot. We had come off 4 consecutive wins. The last 2 weeks against pretty solid winning record teams of the Colts and the Rams. They seemed to finally be getting it together. The defense had been one of the best in the league. The offense was very slow-paced and methodical, but at least wasn't turning the ball over. Everything seemed to be going in our favor. Pittsburgh came into this game at 5-4, 4 straight wins with the 6th seed in the playoffs as of last night. And we're only 1 game behind the Bills for the 5th seed, and we're only 2 games behind the Ravens in the division for the possible 4th seed or higher. Pittsburgh was on a roll. They were one of the hottest teams in the league in spite of the fact that they've been injured and had a pretty lackluster offense coming into this year. Cleveland had been a 3-6 team who was pretty much one of the biggest disappointments of the entire league this year. They were considered to have the best roster, or one of the best rosters they ever had in franchise history, bringing Odell Beckham in to join Jarvis Landry, young quarterback and Baker, young running back and Nick Chubb, bringing Kareem Hunt over. This was supposed to be a breakout year for the Browns, and they've been playing down to the competition, down to themselves all year long on both sides of the ball, in spite of having a pretty solid defense. So it seemed to be, coming into this week, that Pittsburgh should steamroll Cleveland and kind of go on to 3 or 4 more consecutive wins with a pretty easy schedule left to go. But that is not how these games play out. That's why you play the games. Cleveland gets a 21-7 win here this week and upsets the Steelers, even though it was in Cleveland. This was not a pretty game by any stretch of the imagination. Pittsburgh came away in this game with 7 points, and that was in a drive where there was 4 consecutive penalties. So even the one drive we scored on wasn't really, that was mostly flags and luck for us. It was not on our own proficiency. The defense played pretty well in spite of 21 points. Cleveland got up 14-0 pretty early in this game. Pittsburgh once again falls behind early. We have this problem in the first drive or 2 of the game, falling behind by 1 or 2 scores. We did it against the Dolphins. We did it against the Colts. We've been doing it every single week. We did it last week against the Rams on offense, and every week Pittsburgh falls behind right away and has to dig themselves out of a hole, and this time that hole was 14-0 Browns. Pittsburgh then came back to score 7 points and had 4 or 5 opportunities, 4 or 5 drives to tie the game up, and just couldn't do it. Mason Rudolph is not progressing, to be quite frank. Again, the defense gave 14 points up fairly early, but then was incredibly silent, didn't give anything else up for the rest of the game until like the last drive of the game when they had the ball on a interception. Cleveland had the ball at like the 5-yard line. So that last touchdown didn't mean anything. Even that was a big fluky run around back of the end zone play. So 14 points for most of the game is not bad for the defense. Let's just say the defense was the better side of the ball here. They were not as opportunistic. They didn't get any turnovers in this game. They've been the second highest turnover getting team in the entire league behind the Patriots this year, the highest in the last 7 weeks. Didn't get any turnovers today, so this defense was played well, but only had 1 sack, which was T.J. Watt, and no interceptions. So good defense, but not nearly as good at field position splash plays as they have been for the past several weeks. Coupling that with a putrid offense that is rife with injuries, this was not a good game for us. Decent job by the defense again, but nobody stood out. Again, no turnovers. Watt had the only sack. But still played pretty solid overall once they got it together after the first couple drives. Offensively, man, so I'm not going to put this loss squarely on Mason Rudolph's shoulders, but he still looks nervous out there. He's still throwing bad balls across the middle, high and behind. He's still throwing low. He looks very flustered in the pocket. He's misthrowing his checkdowns. He's not looking for multiple reads. He's not reading the safety over the middle. He's overthrowing balls. The only thing he does well is throw those sideline 50-50 balls down the sidelines to his receivers and let those guys go get it. If it wasn't for Juju, Washington, and Deontay catching those one-on-one balls down the field, which could go either way, Mason would have nothing going for him as a passer. Now, granted, there's been no running game. James Conner came back in this game and once again left injured. He's been injured most of the season, and Roosevelt Nix did not play again, so we're left with Jalen Samuel, who's a pass-catching back with no fullback to run behind. So that's a big problem for this offense. Receiving-wise, there's been a few drops on this team. Not to mention that Ryan Switzer came in injured, didn't play. He doesn't play much anyway on offense. But both Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson left this game with concussions fairly early. So we're playing without our number 1 and number 2 wide receivers on top of our number 1 running back. So that's a big thing for Mason that I'll give a pass to. Also, the offensive line had their worst game of the year. They played pretty well for the most part this whole year, especially in pass blocking, but not today. Mason was harassed all game long. Cleveland's front line did a great job at getting pressure on Mason Rudolph, being in his face, hitting his arm, sacking him, especially late in the game, forcing turnovers. Cleveland's defense played lights out. But again, when you're playing with a backup quarterback, your two top receivers are out, your top running back is out, your fullback is out, and you're playing with an O-line that's not playing well, I'm not going to give Mason all the blame here, but he deserves a lot of blame. He had 4 interceptions in this game, plus a 5th one that was dropped by Cleveland, and a fumble that Pittsburgh recovered. So he had 4 turnovers by himself, all interceptions, and 2 other ones that should have been turned over that weren't. So he could have easily had 6 in this game. Mason's one benefit so far has been that he's protected the ball in spite of not being very efficient. In this game, he was not efficient, and he turned the ball over, and our defense didn't capitalize. We lost turnover battle this game 4-0, which is uncharacteristic for us, and that is never good on the road against any team, especially a divisional team that plays us tough. So, not good for us. I'll just go over some quick numbers here. Mason Rudolph was 23 of 44, not good there at all. 221 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 picks, and a fumble that he recovered. So yeah, 4 turnovers, not good at all. Our leading rusher had 26 yards. That is the 2nd week in a row. Jalen Samuel last week led the team with 27 yards rushing. This week he leads the team with 5 carries for 26 yards. Nothing going on offense. James Conner again went out with an injury. We don't know how bad that is. Roosevelt Nix didn't play again, so Samuels carried most of the load. Did not play very well rushing. Did have a receiving touchdown, our only touchdown of the game, but didn't play all that well. Didn't make a lot of cuts. Didn't make any guys miss. Wasn't really effective in the passing game. Mason missed him a few times as a receiver. James Washington led the way at receiving. 3 catches, 49 yards. Yes, 49 yards is our receiving lead tonight. Again, both Juju and Deontay both went out with concussions in this game. We'll see if they make protocol this week. We have 10 days off before we play again, so that's a positive. Again, these receivers aren't really getting open all that well. Juju is not the star he was proclaimed to be coming into the season. The fans thought he was going to be, I should say. But even still, Mason's not hitting these guys. There's so many balls in this game that were thrown low and behind, or just not thrown on the receiver's numbers, or thrown too far out or too high. He missed at least 7 or 8 throws across the middle in this game, 2 of which caused interceptions on overthrows. They called Washington for 2 drops in this game. Both of those were throws that were thrown inside and behind, one of which was picked and one of which was knocked away. So again, Mason is not hitting his throws, and the receivers aren't doing him any favors either, so I'm going to give them some blame as well. This offense is a problem. It's disgusting. The line has played pretty well until today, so I'll give them a bit of a pass. But the running game, the receivers, Vance McDonald's been nowhere to be found. Jalen Samuel hasn't played well. Connor's injury prone. Juju's not a star. We need more receivers. We need a better running game. We need our fullback back. We need better blocking. We need better passing. We need to hold the ball. We need 3rd and 4th down conversions. Those numbers are putrid today. We need less penalties. Those numbers have been kind of bad. Everything. Discipline, coaching, everything is wrong on this offense. Good Lord. Defensively, I ain't got much to say stat-wise. Javon Hargrave, 7 tackles, I believe, today, played pretty well. Steven Nelson played okay after he got beat for the long Odell play, down to the 1. Hayden made a few positive plays and got a few negatives caught on him. Mike Hilton had a bad game today. He got exposed on several slot throws. In this game, he didn't play very well. And again, not much pressure from the DNs either. No splash plays and just 1 sack in this game. So Watt played pretty well. Dupree had a couple tackles, but nothing special out of those guys either. Injuries were a big takeaway from this game in a negative way. Turnovers, obviously. Special teams, let's talk about that. Chris Boswell missed his only field goal attempt. It was kind of janky. I think it was 44 yards, and he pulled it. It's only his second miss of the year. I'm not going to be too hard on him, but he did miss today. Jordan Berry didn't seem like he was all that great today either. He seemed to be kicking a little short, so none of those guys on special teams were very good. Also, I got to say, our kick coverage doesn't seem to be very, very good on the receiving side of the ball. Ryan Switzer was out in this game, so we had a bunch of guys getting chances to return kicks. Tony Brooks-James, the running back, Deontay Johnson, and then once Johnson got hurt, the punt returner was Cam Sutton, and none of those three guys did anything any better than Switzer. So as bad as Switzer is, and as much as I want to see him off this team, none of the three guys that were in today did any better on kick or punt returns. So I got to blame those guys, and I got to think that kick coverage is a problem. Our guys aren't blocking downfield, so get some new guys on kick coverage because punter, kicker, kick coverage, and returners were all bad in this game. So not much good you can say. No third down conversions, penalties, bad passing, injuries, turnovers, special teams. Everything is bad. Final note, Myles Garrett, you absolute buffoon. You moron. Myles Garrett, if you guys didn't see this game and you're watching for this review, at the last play of the game, 8 seconds left, Myles Garrett sacks Mason Rudolph. Mason gets, I guess, offended with how late the hit was, tries to kind of pull Garrett's helmet off. Garrett gets up, picks Mason up by his face mask, yanks his helmet off, and swings the helmet over his head and conks Mason Rudolph right in his helmetless head with his heavy-ass helmet. Myles Garrett has all the talent in the world, and I respect his ability so much, and he's been the Browns' best defensive player for a long time. This kid is a great edge rusher, a great presence on that team. What an absolute ball bag moron. I can't believe you would try to purposely injure somebody without a helmet on and go for the head. A guy who was in concussion protocol last week, you're going to take his helmet off. And that's one thing. If you're upset and frustrated, that's fine. If you don't like the play, whatever, push him by the face mask, push him over, whatever, say something to him. You take his helmet off, and that's fine too, even. But to swing a heavy helmet like that with headset gear inside of it and hit a guy in the head who's helmetless and defenseless, that is ridiculous. You are a piece of crap for that, and I hope the NFL suspends this guy for the rest of the season. That is not a football play. That is not healthy aggression. That is not the way you play the game. I'm all for passion and intensity, but to swing a helmet and intentionally try to go after a guy's head, he could have broken his neck, he could have messed up his spine, he could have concussed him, he could have done anything to truly, truly hurt this guy's future of his life. Myles Garrett should be out of the league for a year and should pay for this with all of his contract money. Ridiculous. That is not a football play. You, sir, need evaluated. That's a problem. Marquise Pouncey's going to get suspended probably because he threw punches and kicks after that happened. Good on Pouncey for defending his quarterback. I appreciate Pouncey for that. We salute you, Marquise. All right, guys. 21-7 loss. We're in a bad place right now. Back in the middle of the pack as far as playoffs go. Sliding backward with a lot of injuries and a lot to address on offense. Tell me what you guys think of this loss. Tell me in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next week.